This month we're going to talk about how and when to discipline our children. You know, we've all been there. We're in a public place and we're, doing our thing and we see that child that's having a temper tantrum. Maybe it's in the grocery store and the child's throwing a fit, or it's in the mall and the kid wants to buy something, and we always think, if I was that parent, I would, whatever it is, insert whatever the discipline would be. But sooner or later, it is going to be your child, and we are going to be the parents that are making the discipline decisions. So the question is how do we decide how to discipline our children, and when do we discipline our children? Even the most even-tempered child is going to have their bad days, and having children that misbehave is frustrating and it's difficult. But none of us wants to raise a spoiled brat. None of us wants to raise that kid. But how do we find a balance between discipline, but also letting kids be themselves and be independent and grow up and do things on their own? Deciding how to discipline children is different for every parent, but we also need to understand why kids behave the way they do. We need to understand why kids, misbehave and do bad things. And here's another question. How do we make the most out of these trying situations? How do we make the most out of a kid's bad behavior? When it comes to dealing with preschoolers, it may be better to think about discipline as an opportunity to teach our children rather than a form of punishment. Most of the times when kids are misbehaving or doing bad things, they're not trying to be malicious. They're not doing it with the intent of ill will or trying to do harm. Many times things that are pretty obvious to us, like this would be wrong or that would be wrong, they are just a foreign concept to children. So when a child is drawing all over the wall with crayons, we think of it as this atrocious thing, but to a kid, it's a masterpiece. It's the Sistine Chapel, and they think it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. But it's up to us to teach our children what behaviors are appropriate and what behaviors are not. But just because a child's behavior is not appropriate does not give us the right as a parent to flip out or to freak out and to go crazy and yell and scream. That's not healthy for them, and it's not healthy for us. The most important thing to remember when it comes to discipline is to stick with it. We have to be consistent in what we do. We have to decide what we're going to allow and what we're not, and we have to be consistent with those all the time. And these limits are going to be different for every family. What works for you doesn't work for the Joneses. And these limits are going to be different for each family. What works for your friend's family isn't going to work for you, and maybe what works for you isn't going to work for your friend's family. Everyone, regardless of age, needs limits, and the younger the child, the more well-defined limits there needs to be. And here's the thing, limits within reason provide security. And don't look at it as a restriction, but look at it as a way to protect your curious child. Many times children act out because they want attention, and although they may be doing something bad or misbehaving, they're just trying to get attention, whether it's good or bad. And that may be foreign to us, but that's what they crave, that's what they desire, and that's what they want is our attention. And so what we need to focus on is giving them good attention and positive attention and praising them for what they do well. Show your child that they're going to receive praise for good behavior. And another thing is make sure you're on the same page with your spouse. Make sure that you guys are on the same page with what's right and what's wrong. And, children don't need to be receiving mixed messages. They need to be consistent and they need to be regular. Parenting is really hard work, and I understand that. And some days are going to go better than others. So here's the thing. Sit down and make a plan for when those bad days come, because having a plan is going to make those bad days just a little bit easier. Also, provide a consistent environment for your children. When things are consistent, they're going to know what to expect. They're going to know what's going to happen. And they're also going to know what the consequences are if they misbehave. Later on this month, be on the lookout for another email where we're going to talk about some different strategies we can use when it comes to parenting and discipline and misbehavior. I hope this video has sparked some conversation and got some thinking going on, and I just pray that as you come up with a plan to discipline your children, that you can just be consistent and that this will benefit you and your child and your family. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.